book lovers, I am so excited to give you today's video because I'm combining two of my favorite things, which is of course books but also Taylor Swift, and we have a new era, we have a new album, and I wanted to do book recommendations for the Tortured Poets department, and I love that album so much. So of course I want an opportunity to talk about that and also to recommend some books for you guys. And I was debating whether to do both of her albums in one video, but I have so many ideas for book recommendations for songs that I thought that if I combine them both in one video, it will be just very long. So I'm only talking about the Tortured Poets department album here, but if you want a part 2 where I recommend books to songs from the anthology album, then please let me know. I'll be very happy to do that as well. But for now, let's talk about the first album, and I have recommendations for most songs but not all of them because I didn't want to force anything. So if I didn't find a book that matched the song well, then I didn't want to do a recommendation for it. I'm gonna give you my top songs from the album, but also give me your top songs. And again, I'm just talking about the first 16 songs because otherwise the list would be so much longer. I think I could say from 1 to 6 I already love all of them, but I don't want to say I'm just loving the whole album, which I do, but I love Fortnight and My Boy Only Loves His Favorite Toys. I love Down Bad and also So Long London. Then Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? Such a banger. And of course, I think you cannot not laugh. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. I would say my final top song is probably The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, but again, there's not one song that I don't love on that album. But let's jump to the part where I recommend books to the songs because that is my favorite part. Alright, so for the first song, Fortnight, I actually have two books that really reminded me of the song. And the first one is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Brocker. I hope I'm saying those names right. This book is about two authors who wrote a book together 3 years ago, and it became so big, but something happened while they were writing it together that now they're not talking anymore, but they still are under contract to write a second book, so they have to go back and write a second book. And the way they're writing it together is that they both go to a town in Florida and move into a house together and co-write. In this book you have just so much tension between these two characters and what happened back then while they were writing and how they don't want to go back there, but there's so much unsaid. And she's also in a relationship where they're working together, and he was in a relationship back then when they worked together in the past. And I want to tell you guys what lyrics especially reminded me of the book. And the first one is, all my mornings are Mondays stuck in an endless February. I took a miracle move-on drug, the effects were temporary. And I love you, it's ruining my life, which is so them. And the second part is actually, thought of calling ya, but you won't pick up. Another fortnight lost in America. Move to Florida. Buy the car you want, but it won't start up till you touch me. So yes, if you want the Fortnite vibes, I would recommend this book. But another book that was actually the first one that reminded me of this song was actually Sex, Lies and Stellenbosch. And in this one, you have several characters and they're all rich people living in Stellenbosch, and it starts with Jen finding her husband cheating on her, and from there on so many secrets come out, and the parents, like all their friend group, have known each other for so long, and stuff happened also in the past, but now they're all good friends and neighbors. And the lyrics that really reminded me of this were, and for a fortnight there we were forever, run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. Now you're in my backyard, turned into good neighbors. Your wife waters flowers, I wanna kill her. And for a fortnight there we were together, run into you sometimes, comment on my sweater. Now you're at the mailbox, turned into good neighbors. My husband is cheating, I wanna kill him. And that summarizes this book so good. So immediately when I listened to the song, I thought about this book and of course had to recommend this to you. Okay, for the second one, I overdid it a little bit. I have actually 3 recommendations for My Boy Only Loves His Favorite Toys. I think it's because one of my favorite songs maybe. The lyrics really reminded me of those 3 books. And before I talk about the first 2, I just want to say that in general, I feel like in a lot of Taylor Swift songs, I read stuff that I immediately connect to the Magnolia Parks universe. If you don't know, the Magnolia Parks universe is one of my favorite series. I haven't even finished it yet, but these characters live in my head rent-free. I think about them so often. And I think in Taylor Swift's song when she talks about the pain and breakup and passion and laugh just always brings me back to Magnolia Park's characters, because that's really them summarized. So of course I had to include them here, and it was really hard actually to me to not put Magnolia Parks or Daisy Hates book for every other song. And with this one, I actually have one Magnolia Parks book and one Daisy Hates book. I couldn't really choose between them. So the first one I want to talk about is the first Magnolia Parks book. The song would of course be only from Magnolia's POV, and in the song you might think that the other part is innocent, and I just want to say that Magnolia Parks is not innocent in the whole relationship dynamic of Magnolia and BJ. I first wanted to just do Daisy Hates, that I'll explain in a second, but the lyrics that reminded me so much of this book was "Just say when I'd play again, he was my best friend down at the sandlot, felt more when we played pretend than with all the cans, cause he took me out of my box, stole my tortured heart, left all those broken parts." Like, this lyrics is just written for this book, especially the pretend part, because if you don't know about the Magnolia Parks universe, this is the first book and you're following Magnolia and BJ and their friend group. And Magnolia and BJ, they had a long-term relationship, but they're broken up now, and they have this really unfunctional toxic relationship right now where she dates basically to protect herself and he sleeps with other women all the time. And Magnolia has all those rules where she allows herself to like touch him, but make it okay that it's not in a romantic way, just to straighten his tie, for example. Like, in her head it makes sense and he plays along because he wants her touch. She feels more with him playing pretend than with all the other guys that she's actually in a relationship with. And it's all very complicated and frustrating, but it is beautifully written, and I just had to mention this because yeah, it's true, he really does break his favorite toy. And then, as I just mentioned, beside that part, I think the song reminds me even more of Daisy Hates. And in here, this is the first Daisy Hates book, but you would read it as the second in the whole Magnolia Parks series. And you follow Daisy and her brother, and also Christian, who's part of the friend group from Magnolia and BJ. And Christian and Daisy start their relationship or their dating situation where they both act like they don't really care for each other, except they do. But also Christian is just very dumb to realize that he has actual feelings for Daisy and hurts her over and over again because he won't believe that that could be love. So the lyrics that really reminded me of this was, "Cause it fit to write puzzle pieces in the dead of night. I should have known it was a matter of time. Oh, my boy only breaks his favorite toys. Cause I knew too much. There was danger in the heat of my touch. He saw forever, so he smashed it up. My boy only breaks his favorite toys." So yes, that is Christian Hems for you guys. And I just really, really love this universe, these characters so much. So of course I had to mention them. And because I wanted to be extra with this song, I also chose a third recommendation, which is Once Upon a Broken Heart. And I don't have the first book with me because I lent it to a friend, but I only have the third one to show you guys, which is A Curse for True Love. But I actually think in the trilogy, this book is actually the best fit for the song. And the lyrics that really reminded me of this book were, "There was a litany of reasons why we could have played for keeps this time. I know I'm just repeating myself. Put me back on my shelf, but first pull the strings and I tell you that he runs because he loves me." So in this trilogy you have Evangeline, who goes to Jax, who's one of the Fates and the Prince of Hearts, and she has the request to stop a wedding of her stepsister and the love of her life because she thinks something went wrong, that he wouldn't just go off and marry her stepsister. And in return for stopping the wedding, Jax wants 3 kisses from her anytime, anywhere, and to whoever he chooses to. And from there on begins a whole journey. And yeah, the song reminds me especially of one character in the series. So next up we have So Long London. I freaking love the song, and I also love my recommendation for it, which is Magnolia Parks' The Long Way Home, the second one in the Magnolia Parks series, or the third overall. And it will be the last time I mention this series, but I just had to. With this song, come on, I just had to, because especially at the beginning, this song fits so well. And I'm not going to go into detail what the book is about because it is part of a series, so I don't want to spoil anything. But the lyrics that really reminded me of the song, besides the whole song, was also "For so long, London, stitches undone, 2 grays, 1 gun." Because with these characters, they really hurt each other so much and they don't really let the other person heal. They always try to become better, but as soon as something is healing, they make the stitches undone and the wounds open again. And also with the reference of 2 graves, 1 gun, I feel like just really reminded me of how they hurt each other, and it's with the same method. And in the end, they are the ones who are dying because of broken hearts, but also are the ones that do the killing for each other. And it is with the same gun. And especially with how the other book ends and this one begins, So Long London, is just very fitting. The next song I have a book recommendation for you guys is But Daddy, I Love Him. And I have two different ones here because those two book recommendations cater to the two different themes I feel like this song also has. And the first one I have here is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. And with this one, I didn't take the lyrics too literal with But Daddy, I Love Him, because her parents are also dead. It's more of that this plays in a small town. Annie is known to be this very sweet girl, and her siblings and also the small town, all the close people, kind of only see her as this one thing, and she wants to break out, but she doesn't know how because everyone around her just treats her as this sweet girl, and if she does anything else, then it wouldn't be her. So for her, it's hard to find herself. But then she meets the bodyguard Will, who she asks to practice dating with, basically. And Will seems to be this bad boy because he dates a lot and he has tattoos, and he's basically the opposite of Annie. And everyone around her wants to warn her that he's not a great fit because he's so different, and all of a sudden she tries things because of him. And it just really shows how even if people love you, sometimes they can cage you in. So for this, the lyrics that reminded me of the book was, I just learned these people only raise you to cage you. Sarah's and Hannah's in their Sunday's best, clutching their pearls, sighing, what a mess. So there's also a scene in the end where people get involved around their relationship that just really matches this lyrics. Just also shows you sometimes the other side when you don't really let a person enough room to also change and maybe grow into something that you wouldn't expect. The other book, though, is a bit more literal on the front of But Daddy, I Love Him, and that is Guild. And in Guild, we have Emma, whose dad has a rival still from college. He basically betrayed him with a business. Emma goes to a party where she meets this mystery guy, and the mystery guy is actually the son of her dad's rival. And also the next morning when she wakes up from the party, there's been a murderer in the house, and the mystery guy, Jamison, who is not only the son of her dad's rival, but is also the murder suspect of said guy who is his dad. So there's a lot going on in this book, but what I think was very suitable lyrics wise is, now I'm running with my dress unbuttoned, screaming, but daddy, I love him. I'm having his baby. No, I'm not, but you should see your faces. I'm telling him to floor it through the fences. No, I'm not coming to my senses. I know he's crazy, but he's the one I want, which I think is very fitting, not only because he's the son of her dad's rival, but also because he's a murder suspect. So my next recommendation is for Fresh Out the Slammer, and this song basically talks about how you gotten out of a really tough relationship where it kind of felt like you were in prison and now you're free and you're running towards someone who can give you everything else. And for that, I chose Part of Your World, Abby Jimenez. So in Part of Your World, Alexis goes through a breakup where she's still living with the guy in the house. Parents are also very fond of the guy, so they want her to reconsider the relationship, but she realized that the relationship was actually really toxic and she just doesn't want to go back because he belittled her, he gaslighted her, and it was just altogether not a great relationship for her, not a good place to be. And one night she drives through the small town and stays the night, and there she meets this guy, and she doesn't just have a spark, she has a really great one-night stand with him, and she can't really stop thinking about him. And because everything is so tough with her breakup and her job situation, and she just has a very hectic, busy life, she calls the guy and she keeps going to him because everything seems so easy with him, and they have just a very, very great chemistry and relationship. I love the guy in this book so much, and I think this book just really captured the thing when you come out of a relationship and you find something good that you keep running towards that. And the lyrics that really suited the book, I think, are grey and blue and fights and tunnels, handcuffed to the spell I was under for just 1 hour of sunshine, years of labor, locks and ceilings, in the shade of how he was feeling, but it's gonna be alright, I did my time. Then also, my friends tried, but I wouldn't hear it, watched me daily disappearing for just one more glimpse of his smile. So though her relationship with her ex-fiancé and the guy she's dating now is not at the same time, it just really reminded me of the book, because also their worlds are very different and her friends don't really understand why she would choose a guy like him or a life there, and they don't really know how to combine that, but it is that glimpse of sunshine in her life. So yeah, if you want a book for Fresh Out the Slammer, read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Next up we have Guilty as Sin. In the first book that actually reminded me of the song was Daisy Jones and the Six, but I have that one for another song, so I thought of a different one, and that one is also so fitting. So I have The Summer We Fell by Elizabeth O'Rourke. And in this book, you have two timelines, the past and the present. You have Juliet, who has a very difficult home situation, and she actually is forced, I think, to move in with her current boyfriend's family. And they're very religious and very different from her. So because they allow her to stay there, she of course wants to live by their rules and just wants to be very respectful. And over the summer, her boyfriend's best friend Luke comes as well. And Luke seems to be the only one who really sees her and sees that she's not just happy there. They have a chemistry immediately, but of course they can't really do anything, and her relationship with her boyfriend is also not bad. It's just that they want different things, but because she's living there, it's a very complicated situation, and she does have a lot of forbidden thoughts about Luke. And in the present, you see there's still a lot of guilty feelings, and she's still not allowing herself to have a relationship with Luke, although in the present she's single. And Juliet also wants to become a singer, but in the family no one really believes her. The lyrics that really reminded me of the book was, I keep these longings locked in lower cases inside a vault. Someone told me there's no such thing as bad thoughts, only your actions talk. These fatal fantasies giving way to labored breath, taking all of me. We've already done it in my head. If it's make-believe, why does it feel like a vow we'll both uphold somehow? And yes, I feel like that really describes the forbidden love aspect. Next up, we have Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? And I feel like I won't be the only person who thinks of that book series. But Who's Afraid of Little Old Juliet? Like, this song is just made for Juliet and the Shatter Me series, and really not just the first book but the whole series in general, because there's so much growth in the character. And I totally understand if in the first or even the first two books readers can be a bit annoyed by Juliet or think she's whiny, but also what was done to her is so awful. But in the first book you start with Juliet, who's being held in a cell or like a asylum, I would say, because she has a defect where her touch actually kills someone. That's why she's cast away by society. Someone from the re-establishment, which is like the new government, wants to utilize her skill for like a weapon and brings her out of her cell, but she doesn't want to hurt anyone, she doesn't want to be a weapon, so she tries to break herself free. And the lyrics that really reminded me of the book were, so tell me everything is not about me, but what if it is? Then say they didn't do it to hurt me, but what if they did? I want to snarl and show you just how disturbed this has made me. You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. So that really fits not just the book, as I said, but the whole series in general. Alright, my camera is dying, so I'm trying to be a bit quicker, but the next one is I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can. And this reminded me of Twisted Love by Anna Huang. And I wouldn't describe Ava to be really naive, but Alex is her brother's best friend, and her brother goes away and asks Alex to kind of look over Ava because they do have a tragic past, and he just wants to know that there's someone who's looking out for her sister. And Alex is this guy who kind of seems like a robot, and Ava and their friends are determined to try to get other emotions out of them. So that's why I think this kind of fits the vibe where she would fix him or like just get another side out of him, and it has to be her. So they're doing a lot of like plans and scheming where they try to evoke other emotions out of her, and it does work. So if you want more of the typical bad boy vibes but also make him a millionaire, and I think why I like this book, I mean, it's not Anna Huang's best book or best writing, but this was super entertaining for me because you do have quite a big side plot here that is sort of like a mystery and a bit more action packed, and I think this is just very entertaining to read. So I definitely recommend the Twisted series in general, and this is the first one in the Twisted series. Next up we have Love of My Life or Loss of My Life, and for that I had to go with Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is like one of the best second chance romances that I've ever read. You have childhood friends to lovers to something happens and they meet by chance several years later, and you see that both of them are still on each other's minds and they just know each other so much. And this book really gave me soulmate vibes, but not in a cheesy way. And the lyrics that reminded me of the book were, we embroidered the memories of the time I was away, stitching, we were just kids, babe. I said, I don't mind, it takes time. I thought I was better safe than starry-eyed. I felt a glow like this never before and never since. And that is very true. And it's so crazy when you sometimes think that you had something with a person and you can't really replicate that with anyone else, and that person is just always stuck on your mind, and you feel like there will never be anything that compares to it that will ever be as great. And that is really Maisie and Elliot's story, and this book is so wholesome and so warm, and it's just a beautiful story, and yeah, really reminded me of the song. Now we have my Daisy Jones and the Six recommendation. I chose the book for the song I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, because Daisy Jones and the Six is about a story of a band in the 60s, and you have the band and you also have Daisy Jones, who comes into the band as another singer, and the current lead singer and her, they have to write a whole album together, and they have a lot of chemistry and a lot of hurt feelings, but he is actually married, and they write together this album, and lines get blurry and feelings get blurry. After all that, they have to go on tour and perform there every night. It's so different behind the stage, but when they're on stage they have to perform, and it feels like sparks fly, and they can leave everything on stage, but off stage you have broken hearts. So I feel like this was very fitting. And the lyrics that I chose for the book were: breaking down, I hit the floor, all the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. I was grinning like I'm winning, I was hitting my marks, cause I can do it with a broken heart, which I really think connects to Daisy's story, but also to Billy's. And right after that, I have another book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and that is Malibu Rising, for the song The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. And I think there are actually two small men that live in this book. So in this book you follow two timelines as well, and in the past timeline you follow the famous singer Mick Riva, how he basically started his career but also his family, and in the current timeline you follow his children, and they have like this huge famous party each year on that specific day, and you follow that day in their current timeline, and how everything really builds up to that one night where everything comes crashing down. And the lyrics that reminded me of this were: I would have died for your sins, instead I just died inside, and you deserve prison but you won't get time. And that really reminded me of the past timeline for Mick and June, who is his love interest and becomes the mom of the kids. That is also the story about. The other lyrics that reminded me of the book: you crashed my party in your rental car, you said normal girls were boring but you were gone by the morning, you kicked out the stage lights but you're still performing, which reminded me more of the present timeline and could really apply to two men in this book. Alright, we came to the last song and the last recommendation, which is The Alchemy. And I just had to go with the football romance. I mean, with the song, I just had to. Maybe it's not even the most perfect fitting, but I just wanted to do a football romance here. And I chose Quarterback Sneak by Kenny Steiner. And there you also have a bit of a forbidden romance, because he's the quarterback and she is the coach's daughter who's also working for the team, and she doesn't really want a relationship with anyone, but he wants her and he's attracted to her and he's not afraid to go after her. Just really reminded me of the song. And with that, we concluded our book recommendations for the Tortured Poets department. As I said, I would love to do the second part for the second album. Let me know in the comments if you want that, and also let me know if you think the recommendations were fitting. Do you have any other recommendations for these songs or for the songs that I didn't mention? I would love to know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did, and also subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!